Hi, Dr. Sanju. So I am going to go over my final project. My final project, I decided to do a Texas Hold'em game. I was looking into doing the tic-tac-toe game or even the blackjack game, but I wanted to do something that would be a little bit more of a challenge to see how far I could get, doing something that would be a little bit harder than what I might normally pick. So I went with a Texas Hold'em poker game, and I wanted to use JavaScript or Python. I prefer functional programming instead of object-oriented programming, though I know object-oriented programming is important. I always feel more comfortable with functional programming, so I thought, that I could have some fun with JavaScript and throw some HTML in there and have a user interface that I could play around with and make look how I wanted, while also using the server and client side with JavaScript to make sure everything communicates correctly. So it's going to be a multiplayer Texas Hold'em game with Node. When I was thinking about using Python or JavaScript, I did want to use JavaScript for Node so that I could get familiar with that. So it runs on the local server. We open up the client interface using an index.html file, and then we have our communication from the server side, and also we can see that communication log coming through on the client side as well, which I did so I could keep up to date with exactly what each side was doing and keep track of everything. So what I wanted to do first was just kind of go over what the server side is doing, then we'll talk about the client side and the user interface with the HTML. So for the server side, so we're using WebSocket to be able to start up the server and communicate with the client. And what I first started with was just trying to create a basic deck of cards that I could shuffle and be able to deal out. So that was the first issue that I had to get through. So once I had that figured out, then I felt a lot more confident. So got to where I could figure out, okay, well, now I need to deal out the cards to the players. Obviously, we have a broadcast set up so that we can communicate with the clients and send the right messages. And once we get the cards dealt out, then we go into our different game phases where we have the flop, the turn, and the river, and information going out to let us know on the server side and the client side, that these cards are being dealt. So this is the server side messages that we're going to see. Now, previously, when I first ran through all of this, I could not figure out how to actually rank the hands for the winners. So just so that I could have messages printing out on both sides, I just went ahead and randomly chose a winner, and then actually found something on GitHub that I could use as a library called pokersolver that would rank the hands so that we could determine an actual winner instead of just assigning it at random. So this was extremely helpful that I found actually quite at the last minute, to be honest. So instead, now we can actually use this pokersolver library, and that will rank the hands, so then we can output the winner. We can deal with dividing up the pot if there's multiple winners. I didn't come across that yet. I've done a lot of hands in this, and I have yet to have a tie. I could hard code in, the cards that it deals, I suppose, but I have a lot of faith in this in this poker solver here. So moving on, we then can move to the next phase of the game. So that tells us to progress the game phase. We've got, like I was saying before, the pre-flop when you first have your first two cards handed to you, and then the flop, turn, and the river, and then the showdown at the end. So after we're done with the game, then we have to reset the game back to its initial state so that we can go back and actually ready ourselves again to play another hand once that hand that we were playing is over and the winner has been named. So this part here is just moving through the next player's turn. We're finding out if anyone has folded, how many players that we have left who haven't folded. That way we get a message that will say, it's this person's turn, it's this player's turn. And it does automatically assign player 1, player 2, player 3. I initially had it to where it would ask you for a username but in all honesty, I got tired of having to type in a username every time I was testing this program, which was hundreds of times easily. So I just started having it assigned just a player and a number, and that was that. And moving on here, we're just making sure that, we're readying ourselves. I made it to where the buttons were, which I'll show you in a second. The buttons wouldn't be clickable until you had ready yourself for a game and the game had started. At first, you were just able to bet and check and do all kinds of stuff, and the game hadn't even started yet. So I had to figure out a way to put that in there so that it would let you know, the game has not begun. Here, there's an error message that will come up if it's not your turn, and it will let you know whose player turn it is. And also, we had to put invalid bet amounts in there, so if someone has 100 chips and they try to bet 10,000, that they would not be able to do that. So really all of this is just folding, checking, basic moves for the poker game, and then we also have a message when the player disconnects. So moving on to the client side. So on the client side, as soon as you get into the game, I wanted you to know that you're connected to the server. You get your ID assigned to you, and then there's a list that shows who is ready and who is not ready. So if we have 2 clients on, if we have 4 clients on, it'll say player 1, 2, 3, 4, ready, not ready, and keep you updated with each step. Dealing the cards, dealing the community cards, updating the chips that you have, just pretty basic poker stuff here. This was all pretty easy to implement. Once we had the phase changes, I wanted to put a message in there to let them know, hey, it's the flop, it's the turn, it's the river, so-and-so checked, so-and-so folded, etc., etc. So after that, really there's not a lot more. I've just got the button clicks here for readying your player and making sure that that resets whenever the game restarts. And then we've got the function to show the cards on the table on the client side. And this is just some basic HTML. Usually I would have gone a lot deeper into making this something beautiful, but I was so busy with trying to make the server and the client side work correctly that I just kind of made this look pretty basic, to be honest. I could have spent more time on this, but I think it turned out well enough. So the first thing that you're going to want to do in order to run this is you're going to need Node, which you can get Node from Node.js.org. Once you have that downloaded, then you'll run these installers. So you'll want to install the pokersolver with this command, initialize, all that kind of stuff. So that is really all there is to it. Once we've got our files downloaded and we're in the folder, then we're going to run Node. So we have our server running, and then we're just going to go into the folder in the Explorer, find our index.html. You can tell I'm in my final project. I've got many versions of it, but this is the working one. And we're going to start opening up these clients here. So as you can see, we get the message that we're connected to the server. We are player 1, we're not ready. Here we see player 2 is joined, player 3 is joined. No one's marked as ready yet, but we're going to say, okay, we're ready. So now it's going to say, okay, well, we can't do anything because we have to wait for more people to be ready. So as soon as we have our second player saying that they're ready, then we can start the game. And what's good is, like I said before, I made it to where you can't start clicking these. That was working before, and it was just going all kinds of cattywampus, trying to figure out why people were marking themselves ready and not ready. So now it says it's players 3 turns, so we're just going to check. I'm just going to kind of run through this pretty quickly because I know I don't have much time. And so after everyone has checked, now we have the flop. So we say, okay, we have our 3 cards, and everyone can see their own cards. And then the community cards, you can't see anyone else's cards, which is good. That was another problem that I ran into. So for this hand, I'm just going to keep checking and see that we just go through. And over here, we can see what's happening as well. So it tells us what cards have been dealt out, which players have joined, that the deck has been shuffled. It keeps track of everything, which was good for trying to figure out the bug issues that I was having. So here we go, back to player three's turn. So since we have all of our cards out, this should be it here. And then we get this wonderful message that tells us that player one won with the pair of aces. And like I said before, using that poker solver, I did check with many, many, many hands to make sure that it was working correctly. So now let's see what happens. So let's say that we kill the server side. We're going to get messages on the client sides that let us know that we are disconnected from the server. So we can go ahead and close that out, start up this side again, open up some more clients here, and we can have up to 5 just to show you that it does work. Already all 5 here, and we can see that we do get the cards to come out. So we'll actually do some betting here. So let's see. So we can bet 5. Another problem that I ran into, so I can call, but for some reason it automatically wants to default to the final player instead of going in a correct order. I am not sure why, to be honest. And I've tried to iron that out, and I just could not iron that out, why sometimes it just kind of skips around. So we can keep calling, we can bet. Let's see, it's player one's turn. So another issue that I ran into was if I was to bet 10, so technically the next person should not be able to bet 5. They should be forced to do 10 or more. Can't figure that one out either. I went through many variations through the code and just could not get that to work. So other than that, those are the biggest issues that I've had. Is not anything with the communication between the client and the server. It was really just the steps of the game itself, which if I had more time, I'm sure that I could iron out. So here, player 5's turn, we're just going to check and see who wins here, just to show that these 5 can work at the same time. And there we go, 3 of a kind. Wow. And it is updating the chips correctly too. That was another problem that I ran into, that it was just kind of spreading out the chips across all the players. And even though player 1 won, everybody would get the pot. But I think that I have that ironed out. I've been kind of checking the math to make sure that it's ironed out. And if anyone disconnects, it does tell you over here. If you close the tab, it will tell you if that person, disconnected, that client disconnected. And let's see, so now we have 2 up, so let's just ready ourselves for 2 here. And I do have the fold working as well, so it does let us know if there's a fold, and then we get over here, letting us know that player 1 won, since there was, no player 2. Player 2 had folded. So that is just about it. Another thing that I did want to talk about, I was going to put an all-in button in there, but when I was trying, I think it was during the issues that I had with the pot not going in correctly, not calculating correctly, so I said, you know what, all in, and also blinds. I was trying to mess around with big blinds and small blinds, and I was like, it's just too much. So I wanted to just make sure that I had the client side working, the server side working. I've got messages on both sides updating to let us know what's going on, disconnect messages, error messages, etc., etc. Overall, like I said, there are a few things that I would like to iron out. I put it up on GitHub so that way I can play around with it later and try to see if I can actually get it working even better. But I think for the final project and for the scope of the project being bigger than what I initially wanted to do, that it turned out really well, and I hope that you think so as well. Thank you so much for everything, and I hope you have a wonderful day.